In-framer rebuild, got put in the bus, got pulled out, and got repowered with a new engine.
What are we doing?
Okay, he's going to pull off the flex plate, which is what couples the engine to the torque converter. And then we're going to pull off the bell housing.
Bell housing. What is that, the bell housing?
Yes.
C, that would be the bell housing.
Bell housing.
Oh, bell. It's not, it wasn't here, but it usually goes right here. Yeah, it wasn't on that engine.
Now, go ahead and pull those off. I'm going to make a little statement here.
All right.
Nope, leave that there.
Okay.
Okay, because that's a bad habit to get into.
Okay.
Because here's what typically happens.
Falls in
No-
the middle.
Yeah, this isn't so bad, but if you have ever worked on an older Caterpillar 3208, it's carnivorous. It's got caves in there that have probably never been explored. And if you get in a habit of leaving your tools on your work,
It'll fall in.
it could fall into one of those caverns and it may not make it down to the oil pan.
And that's bad.
And that's very bad, especially if you're talking about smaller sockets. So what I want to dissuade you from doing is getting in the habit of putting your tools on your work, because it could be this falls in there and you leave and I tell Gene to put the head on and he does exactly what I tell him without checking. So he puts the head on, he puts everything on, he puts the whole damn thing together, then he goes to bar it over to set the valves and all of a sudden it stops. Maybe. Or if he's really ignorant, he turns it over with the starter motor and bends my rod. Now the motor's toast. Now,
Sounds like
is
my
it
wife.
is it his fault? Yeah, probably. He should have looked at it, but it's an incident that could have been avoided by not leaving your tools on your work.
Just like when my wife washed my hands without checking my pockets.
I know. I've laundered my. No, she always finds the money I leave in there though. I accuse her of laundering money because she'll come out and look what I found. There's like a $20 bill. I'm like, oh, it's mine. It's mine. I'm like, no, it's not. $20 is not worth the argument.
Laundry rules.
Yeah, laundry rules. I've been banned from laundry, so.
You want to stay like that, huh?
Well,
Did that on purpose.
you know how you do it? Dry the wife's bras. Game over.
Don't do it.
That's right. You want to get banned from laundry.
What's
you-
laundry?
Yeah, see, spoken like a true married guy.
We've got a magic thing where you throw it in there and it comes out folded.
Wait,
Yeah. Mine's on out for repair.
Go white. Huh? Go white.
My
I don't know, I put it in there in the morning.
I've
It's
gotta-
done when I get back.
I've got to put my dryer on a diet because it's eating socks. And I told my wife she's washing the pants wrong because they're still shrinking. I don't know. I mean, just saying. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
I ordered the uniforms for the guys, so.
They're not growing. The uniforms are shrinking.
Yeah, the uniforms always shrink this way,
Rather
never
each remove
lengthwise.
them.
It's really
No,
weird.
no, that's something with the cloth. I don't know what it is.
We have a company that ordered that. Yeah, we don't want to take all those chemicals. You can wash them, yeah. Yeah, they do it
just be careful who you feed to. It falls off.
Okay. Now that's Cummins makes a tool that I can put it in there. It'll engage the flywheel, and I can use a ratchet to rotate the motor.
There must be something going on.
Did you get the ones off on the inside?
Yes.
Okay. It's on a dowel, so you need to use a small hammer or your hand.
Got it.
Slide that under the table. Now what we can do is we're going to pull the pulley assembly off here.
So this is for the tool after we get some break those loose.
You can go ahead and leave those on, that'd be something to hold on to. But break these bad bears loose.
You can,
Okay.
if you have that oil, I'll come in.
Now what you see there
I really can't.
is the back of the crankshaft and the rear main seal. Now, the downside of this particular design is if this seal starts leaking, and they do,
Okay.
transmission's got to come off, bell housing's got to come off, flywheel's got to come off, and then it takes you all of about 20 minutes to replace that.
In frame.
That might be a good
To
reason to,
replace, what, this one?
yep, to take these bolts out
Oh.
and take this seal off.
Got it.
So you might have banked into the can.
What's this lead to?
That leads to the camshaft, and we'll see that when we take the oil pan off.
Oh, where, okay,
next-
where it drops off all the,
That's where
Where the
the
push
impact.
rods move up and down, that's what turns into the camshaft.
That's where the impact.
I might.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Alright, see you on Monday.
All right, let me, hold on, yeah, hang on a minute. Hand me those, did you take those two bolts out? Take them out.
Maybe we could use that as a thing. to hold.
Here, let me show you.
That it does.
Impact.
Right size.
You're gonna wedge it?
Have a good
Well,
weekend.
it'll have a well, it'll have a
Let me have my,
pickup screen and
esto ya es una
you
parte
see it
nada
as it
más.
rotates.
my pry bar.
You see it.
Este es el,
And that one, the other
You ready
one,
on the rack, Jeremy?
was this one.
Bill,
Well, the oil pan will do it, but it'll go
Bill
down.
Housing, that one. Bill Housing, okay.
and this one, Colel.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Got it?
If he's doing that, just being in the bus, it would probably stay put because it'd be hooked up to the transmission.
Wait, why is it-
Plus he'd be
To
using
keep
it
this
as
from
back, so
spinning.
United?
Yeah, there's a crank, it's all spins. Now, if you had an impact, you could take it off,
Cool it, gallery.
or just break it loose.
It might be an oil plug, I have to look at it.
Can you lose it up a little bit?
Yeah.
You're killing me over here. Yank that puppy, man.
Yeah, you need to.
Bolts are not they need to be tapped maybe a little bit.
That is just a front pulley for the belts, to drive the alternator and air compressor, and nothing from the AC compressor.
It's just
That's
'cause
the
I
view
think-
we get from the back of the bus, right? This side?
Yeah,
Mike.
get it?
Yeah,
Are they all loose?
Yep.
yes. How's this pulley gonna come? We're gonna have to use a puller.
Hold on. Now watch your feet. It is a bit heavy.
From here, right? Let me see, let me get the front of it here. Go ahead. Put it in there and just kinda.
Is that the only way you get it off, or do you have a full
No,
puller?
it comes out that way.
Okay.
Okay, now, now, this is a harmonic balance. And we'll talk about this when we get in the lower end. But briefly, everything on this planet has its natural frequency. Okay, it just does. It just vibrates. Okay. How many of you guys are old enough to remember the old Memorex cassette tape commercial where they go, is it live or is it Memorex? And they have an opera singer. She'll hit a certain octave and it cracks the champagne flute. That's what happens when a item's natural frequency goes into harmony with another frequency, and the two frequencies are equal. The flute cracked and broke. The crankshaft has its natural frequency, and when it's in operation, it vibrates. If the operating vibration and its natural harmonics ever equal, the crankshaft's going to shatter just like that flute did. What my balancer does up here, or my vibration balancer, or my harmonic balancer does, is it helps absorb some of the shock from the crankshaft's operation so that its operating frequency doesn't equal its natural frequency and we don't crack or break the crankshaft. J's.
Voice mark.
Why is it marked? So when the mechanic did a tune-up, he could mark the piston at top dead center, and then when he had to turn the crankshaft one revolution, he could bring it right back up here and then do the second half of the. But there is no, unless the OEM says there is no timing of the harmonic balancer to the engine. In other words, you just put it on the crankshaft. Now, that doesn't mean in the future you may have to time the harmonic balancer to the crankshaft, but right now this one doesn't do that. Okay, you just put it on. Now, we're going to take these 4 bolts off. Okay? And this might be loose enough where I can just kind of tap it off. We'll see.
Take these 4 bolts off.
Yes.
So the outer ring is called the harmonic balancer, and the middle part is the crankshaft.
That's just how it mounts to the crankshaft. There's a flange here you'll see when we get all this off. That's the crankshaft. But yes, this part here is the harmonic balancer. It may not be on there that tight, Mike. I'm not sure how tight I had these guys do this when they put it back together last.
How far are you gonna go, Mike?
Oh, we're going to gut this bad bear. Not today, of course, but we're going to get it tore down. Pull the crank out of it, pull the cam out of it, pull the pistons, pull the liners.
Yeah, those aren't tight at all.
You guys are gonna take this all the way apart to nothing and put it back together. The good thing is, it doesn't have to run.
That's a good one right there.
Hey, what are you trying to say?
I was just saying, that's always the anticipation factor gets very heavy when you rebuild an engine and you're gonna
Oh,
turn the
yeah.
key, see if it fires.
It's a
up.
wee bit stressful.
Why?
Because if it doesn't, the realm of possibilities is pretty much endless. Now,
So that one
Look
is.
at
we left the
Is
other
it coming?
one. Yeah, that one only is something, that one's fine. If this goes there too. No, they're different.
see if you'll fit that
Oh,
in there.
that's another part.
I don't really want to use a puller if I can get away with it.
No, this is good. Because I put.
Surprised you don't use some type of a puller on it.
Well, I could. And I may have to. Hold on, hold on.
Well, look at that, man.
All right,
Now
now-
One point.
That'd
No,
be a,
17.
Yeah, I
be a
mean,
good idea. Take those out.
well,
20.
I only do this once a year, so every now and then I forget that I got an adapter on there.
This belongs to them?
Yes.
No, no, no.
Or no,
Those
no,
are-
no,
those-
no,
those are
no,
separate.
those
Yeah,
are
you
so
can
legal,
do it.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah, he's getting it.
pull that. What's that?
We were asking, you said every now and then you forget, we were wondering how often. It's
Once a
probably
year.
Once a year.
About once a year, right? That's right. Make
Got
fun of
your
the.
back, Mike, we got your
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. That's where all the knives are going, right?
Stay another year. One more year.
Well, the way I'm looking at it, 4 more rebuilds and I'm out of here.
The reason I'm gonna wait
Really?
till July is so I
Listen
can
up for
watch
one
you
more.
guys
Oh, this one?
graduate June 25th.
They actually delivered tonight, so.
That's the graduation.
Where is it gonna be?
It's gonna be at the main office.
Ah, that thing's gonna come right off.
Because it's such a large
Where's the other
slab.
police?
You make a barrel for it? That'll work.
That's right, that's right.
Yep.
I don't like mixing bolts, but Mike knows where they all go for sure.
You don't have to- I've got it on.
Be careful, that's ready to come off. It'll come right off.
Did you ever find your piece of what's
Out of the socket?
Yeah.
Yeah, it showed up.
Where?
It was sitting on my box when I came in one day. I was like, I'm fine with that.
It was sitting over there,
Just sitting there.
like nothing.
Like somebody decided to put it there because they forgot it where I'd find it.
Okay, that was good.
Okay.
Leave it on
Now,
the ground or?
on the deck.
Okay,
It's down the stairs.
Now.
Ibuprofen.
It's been refined.
So set that right on top of it.
No, these ones right here. That one right there.
okay.
Just set everything kind of in the same area. Now, what we got here
Keep all that right there.
Because I will surely forget how it goes back together. Alright, now. This is the front of your crankshaft. Right here. This is your front main seal.
Sometimes it leaks from there.
Yeah. And again, you see what you have to go through to get to it. Okay? Now, if this were in a bus, it wouldn't be too terribly bad because you could do it with the engine in the bus because it's looking at you. So you'd have to take off all the belts, the pulley, the timing gear cover.
Another thing is that the outside of the crank sometimes gets worn down.
Yep, and I was going to go there, and I'm glad you brought that up. These seals will wear a groove in the crankshaft just because this thing spins inside of that all day long. And after a while, even a new seal can't keep the oil from going down into the crevice around the seal and up out the other side. So you're going to have to repair that. Now, there's several ways you can do that. You can replace the crankshaft. That's not really a good option.
Or install a sleeve on top of that.
I was going to say you could build it back up with a welder and then machine it flat. Not a good option. Or you put a speedy sleeve on it, which is just what's it look like? Just a round band, about yay thick, and it drives over the top of it, and it covers up the groove in the crankshaft, and then you put a new seal on it, and it stops the oil from leaking. And you can do that in the back one too. It's called a speedy sleeve. And then that way, that stays on there until you replace the crankshaft. Or you put another speedy sleeve on there if it wears out. But it stops the oil leak.
Those are hard to take off, the sleeve itself.
Not really. If you take a peen hammer, a ball peen hammer, and just tap on it, or you get a blunted chisel. You just tap it, it'll usually expand, or if it doesn't, it just splits, and you just...
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and you don't have to be like, wham! Remember, you're hitting the crankshaft.
Oh, I know.
So you can take a ball peen hammer and tap, 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 and sometimes you'll see it starting to stretch, and then you could kick it off with a pry bar. Or you get not a sharp chisel because you don't want to put a chisel mark in your crankshaft. You get one, you blunt it on the grinder, bink, 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 and it comes off. Go ahead and pull that seal out, Mike, if you want.
This right here.
Yep.
Probably a 10. Is it? Oh, I'll be done. There you go.
Not hard.
No.
Just a little tiny.
You need a special tool to put the other one in because it's so thin. If you like,
Oh yeah, if it wobbles, huh?
Was that the speedy sleeve? That's why you got to buy the drivers.
yeah, the special tool.
That pushes it in.
And I'm not much for being forced to buy special tools, but that's one I'll buy. Because if you screw up that speedy sleeve, you got problems. And you have to take it off. And I know there are some individuals, and even though they tell you you don't have to put an adhesive on it,
What's the name
I've
of
seen
this
guys put
Crankshaft,
or RTD or whatever, gasket maker, and then drive it on.
Seal, front seal,
Big seal,
front seal.
chrome seal?
You can even put the seal in the bucket there.
It just
Oh,
takes
yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes more time to get access to it than put the speedy sleeve on it and button it up.
How if you have it in
All
this
these
condition,
other
it's like a 20-minute job.
Yeah.
When it's on the bus, you gotta remove
All that crap you got to take off to get to it.
All the other bolts.
Not only that, to get to this, you got to take the bumper off the bus. That's 2 hours there.
All the other bolts.
Yeah, let's pop this bad bear off first, though.
Like right there, you had like a nice tool right back.
Okay. Now we'll put these bolts in here. So right in there. What do you got
Take more
there?
time to set up the
Front seal and put
sleeve.
timing cover. Right.
So we'll get your 10-inch or a 10 mil open
ING
or a long socket cover.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Perfect.
Give it a setup to get out.
Do you have to get that cover off in order to get the thing out?
They're telling me
To get this off here?
No, in order to get the crankshaft
Yes.
off, you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
take that off?
Yep. There's no way that crankshaft's coming off without taking this cover off.
Oh, okay.
That's what they used
Get that one,
Yeah.
allegedly before.
timing cover.
Front seal timing cover.
You just don't stick with our eyes. It's a trip, you know, get someone where like if something and more crazy is our budget department. We have like a couple of random highways that came to the right. Random parts of the bus. It's feeling like any part you can find on the edge of the part, wherever got it, and it's bored.
So since this is an aluminum block, it's okay to use the impact on it. Just get these off.
You would, yeah, you can just zing them off, it's not a problem. And on the floor, that's what the guys do, they'll have their little Makitas or their electrics. Most of them are going to electrics these days, they'll just have those bad batteries out, you'll be done in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Most of our mechanics have a Milwaukee.
Yeah.
What's that?
Milwaukee.
They've gotten better. It's a better, I think it's a, for the money, I'd buy Milwaukee
Oh, yeah, yeah.
before I buy a Snap-on, and who knows, it might even be made by the same company. You just never know.
And they got a good repair center off Magnolia.
Yeah. Yeah.
To take it in, right?
If you break it, yeah.
Yeah.
What's them all, 27 volts now, or are they 32? Yeah.
It's 24.
24, that's fine. The first power screwdriver I had, 7.2 volts, yeah, it was like 89 or 90 or something. And it was, you know, Bulldog, 7.5 volts, you know, you gotta charge it. You know, and it took half a shift, all shift to charge it. The batteries were like, you know, they were monstrous. I mean, it's great if you're doing a lot of bench work, but if you're in the bus, you just couldn't get to it. They get the bolts
Everybody
over.
has that.
We have two more. We have more. Yeah, those.
Yeah.
The one that takes the lug nuts out?
Yeah.
I got a DeWalt electric I plug in, I use at home. I bought it on eBay for like 50 bucks. It didn't work, so I took the brushes out, put new brushes in. Perfect. And I zip the tires off my cars all the time when I'm,
The DeWalt Impact?
no, it's,
What the hell? These
Because they
are,
wanted to sell us those.
these are round the block.
We were telling them, it doesn't take your lugs,
This
but
one's not
the
on
lugs
this
don't
side.
come off.
Okay, I'll use this one.
yeah, Snap-on's half-inch won't.
No, well,
But DeWalt, Milwaukee, they will. That DeWalt one's a beast. Alright, what do we got here, Mike?
How about these ones?
Yeah,
Some of
I
these are
did, I
different
did
things.
loosen it, but it's just, they tighten up too a little bit. But those are different sizes.
Yeah, they got different sizes.
Huh,
That's because they want to mess with you.
yeah, make you, make you earn
oh, the oil cover?
and that's a 13, it's a 12. I'll just take it. Just go. Get this thing. I think it's too dark. So that should be.
Get a speedy on it?
auction off all the Honda CNGs that we Yeah, they auction. Yeah.
So it's gotta be.
I think you could have got it.
So it must be 11.
One more feet on the top.
It must be 11. It's an 11. When I put it 12, it was too big. It's not 12.
You donate them to like churches.
Yeah, I think so.
Booyah.
I figure they probably send them to like rural places with transportation maybe.
Maybe it's a 716 or something. That's kind of weird, 11.
I don't know why someone did that. They just, for whatever reason. Got him?
Where these go?
Got one more. I think I got it. All right.
That was
I've done one of those before where you gotta put like some of the gasket builder on it. But man, it makes a mess. Like oil keeps coming out of it.
Oh, look at that. You don't have no chain. That's
No.
cool, man.
All right, what we got here, let's go ahead and
That's
lay it on
pretty
its
cool.
back and slide it under the bench there. Should fit. There you go. Now, this is your timing gear, okay? When you go to set the relationship between when the valve's open and where the piston is, you have to set your base mechanical or base engine timing. This is how you time your valves to your piston position. So you've got marks in here. You got a 0 here, and I got 2 zeros there. So what I would do, where's those 2 bolts?
Where's the breaker for? Yeah.
Oh, that's easier now, huh?
Now you see how I got the 1 0 between the 2 zeros?
Yes.
Okay, my timing, my mechanical timing is set. So the valves will open when they should, they'll close when they should, and when the valves open, the piston will be in the appropriate cycle and the appropriate position. I know this because I've set my crankshaft in the correct relationship to the camshaft. If you don't put this correctly, you're probably going to damage the engine. The valve will be open when the piston comes up, and bam, you bend the valve, will break the piston.
So when you're talking about
So the 2
time-
zeros
the timing from the engine
match
is
up with the
right?
1 0. Okay.
In this particular instance,
Okay.
some manufacturers will have a little arrow and a little arrow, or a dot and a dot, or a dash, but they'll give you some indication as to how to set it up.
Okay.
Okay? Now this is just, it's called valve timing.
Okay.
Okay, it's different than ignition timing in that ignition timing tells me when to fire off the spark plug or the injector in relationship to where the piston is in the bore. I'm sorry, Lorena. Okay? If I don't get this right, it may not run, or if it runs, it will run horribly bad. If I get it way off, the piston's going to be open in the wrong stroke or in the wrong time, and the piston's going to come up and smack it. So the valve will be hanging up there thinking it's supposed to be open, the piston thinking it's supposed to be closed, you come up, bam, you run it right into it. Okay?
Can you get it set off time by itself?
Under normal operating conditions, this is fixed because this has got a dowel in it here, so this gear can't rotate on that shaft. This has got a key in it, a keyway, so that gear can't rotate on that shaft. Now some of your smaller, lighter duty engines, this is just pressed on, and over time, yeah, it might start to spin a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I have heard that before, like if it says, oh, your engine's out of timing.
Well, if your engine's out of time, this is gear driven. Okay, if your engine's out of time, most engines have a belt between this, and that belt stretches and allows this to go out of relation to that. Okay, and when that happens, you're usually going to damage an engine. So you'll have a timing belt, or some will have, a timing belt will be a rubber belt, Kevlar reinforced rubber belt. Okay. Some of your medium applications will have a timing chain, and then these guys are all gear driven.
And that's pretty much the life of the motor right there.
As long as nothing
Yeah.
gets ingested into it, it's
Yeah.
not going to go anywhere. It's going to be the way it is.
So these
Not-
are interference engines?
These are what?
Interference engines?
I don't know what you mean by the term interference engine.
Like when?
If the timing's offset, then the damage to the piston and round will occur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some engines, like older Detroits, you could set like a 10-degree or mechanically set in advance by using alternate marks on the pulleys. Okay. This one isn't that. Okay. This one, it's a transit engine. This is, I believe, 0 degrees. No advance. Now,
What's the light 240?
what's the what?
These two.
That's the oil pump. That's the nice thing about this engine. If I got to change the oil pump, I don't have to go into the oil pan. I've got to go through all the rigmarole getting to here, but then I can pull the oil pump right out of the front.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so I can usually do it in the vehicle. Of course, the bumper probably has to come off. I don't think you can get this part of it with the bumper on the bus. So you need a forklift for that bad bear. We good? All right, I need you to gather. Okay, this is the crankshaft gear. This is the camshaft gear. And they turn at the camshaft rotates at half speed of the crankshaft. Now that's,
No, oil pump right here.
knowing that can go a long way for troubleshooting. If I've got a tick in the engine that sounds like it's going half the speed of the engine, it's probably valve train related. If I've got a tick in the motor that sounds like it's going the same speed as the engine, it's probably crankshaft related. Neither one is good. That's when you go down and you know how you fix that? It costs about $4.95.
Take a hammer.
Nope, that's how much the for sale sign costs. Go down to Ace Hardware, get a for sale sign, put on the window. As soon as it's sold, your problem's fixed.
Wow.
Right?
Crankshaft.
I'm just saying.
The cam lasts a long.
Now, I think we've reached a pretty good stopping point. Now that's for a gear puller. If I want to pull this gear off, that's where my puller would go into and I could yank the gear.
Okay.
And you would do that on the bench. Let's say I got a new camshaft. My camshaft's damaged somehow and I want to replace my camshaft. I would use a puller, pull the gear off, get my new camshaft, install the gear on it, the OG gear. It only goes in one way. It's indexed with a Woodruff key.
Have you seen one is damaged by the
Oh, oh yeah. I've seen stuff get ingested in the motor and it just knocks the teeth off these things. I've seen a lot of horrible damage. All right, let's do this, folks. Please gather up my tools, wipe them down, and put them back in their appropriate spots. Do not take them home. Okay, make sure we gather them all up.